Last name is Jones. First name Jim, Jim.
Before we get into the interview questions, I have just a few preliminary questions for you. Can you tell me what dates you worked for RCA?
Started work at RCA May 5th, 1979, and retired January 31st, 2008.
And what was your job title?
Job title over a period of 28 years changed. Went from a project engineer to a unit manager to a program manager to individual contributor. Over 28 years, it covered a lot of turf. Had people working for me, and I worked for people, so it's pretty much everything.
How did you get your job at RCA?
That came about because I was working for another company, Raytheon, who was a direct competitor with RCA for military hardware, specifically radars. And after 10 years at Raytheon, I decided I needed to do something different, so I came down and interviewed with a gentleman named Nick Artuso in late 78, early 79, and he offered me a job in the program management office where I could use my prior 10 years of experience in the microwave and radar business to help in the procurement, fabrication, assembly, test, and integration of what was then called the Aegis radar. And the reason for me taking that job was that it was very state-of-the-art. The testing was going to be considerably different. It was using something called a near-field test set, which cost more than the array did. But it was very leading-edge technology, and that appealed to me because I thought I could use some of the background that I had to make a contribution.
Can you describe what you did at RCA?
Yeah. Responsibility of the project engineer, which is where I came in, was to monitor suppliers, monitor, upgrade, change specifications for parts and for the parts of the radar itself, monitoring the actions on the factory floor where things were being assembled, and then monitoring the test to make sure that what we supplied to the Navy, who was our customer at the time, everything that we promised to deliver in the contract, that the equipment was going to do what it was supposed to do. And back then and even today, my opinion of that was make it safe for the sailors and so that they could come home. So my job was to make sure that we satisfied that need for some very specific equipment. And that continued until I left.
What were your relationships with your coworkers like?
Oh, most of them were fantastic people. People were very bright, very caring, and wanted to do the right thing, which made me happy because later on we ran into some people that maybe had some other agendas. But the people that I worked with directly, either as a supervisor, a peer, or as a co-worker, as a consultant, all cared very much about what they were doing and wanted to make it right. And that made it easy and it made it fun. You look forward to going to work because you're going to probably learn something new every day. And that just kind of lights the fire. You got to interact with different kinds of people. Not just the people in the plant, you have a chance to talk with Navy personnel, either sailors or people in the executive branch of the Navy. And there was always some give and take, but the relationships were really great. And I've told people before that when I retired, the thing that I was going to miss the most was the people. And that's true because they were great. Sometimes didn't agree with them, sometimes they didn't agree with me, but from that we both, we all learned and made it better. So it was fantastic. I still keep in touch with a bunch of them. Miss the people a lot.
What kind of wages and benefits did you earn?
Above average. Benefits were were actually pretty good. You got your health insurance and life insurance, and vacations would start out at 2 weeks a year, but eventually you could, with time at the company, you could get up to 4. Some people actually were able to get 6 weeks of vacation, 10 to 15 holidays a year. Like I said, health benefits were really pretty good, and the wages were above average. When I first started out of school in '67, I was making $700 a month. And when I retired, I was making a lot more than that. But it was because it was a high-tech thing and required certain skills, and they paid for some of that. Anybody in my position was going to have an engineering degree. When I retired, I had 40 years of experience, some of it very unique, which was good for me. And there were a lot of people like that. My position was not union, but there were union engineers, and they were well taken care of. So, I'm not going to give real numbers because, but I know that when I left, engineers starting right out of school were making about $45,000 a year, and that's with no experience at all. And it went up. I don't know what the top was, but it was good pay, and it allowed me and my wife to put 3 kids through college. So that was good.
Were there a variety of ethnic groups when you worked at RCA?
Not as much as I would have liked. Very few African Americans. Some Orientals, some from Europe, and I actually, it was funny because I was talking with a guy that was Russian, and we were supposed to be talking about classified material, and it was very hard to do that, even though he had a clearance, and I could legally do that. It was kind of funny because I'm talking to Vladimir and disclosing all this classified information, and that was kind of, we got to think about this one for a minute. But the ethnic spread, there wasn't a lot of diversity. They were trying to promote that. There were classes on it, on how to do this, how to use diversity. And diversity could mean not just ethnic, but male, female, countries of origin. They were really trying to make it work right. Making progress, but still had a ways to go. And when I started there, it was pretty much a WASP outfit, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. So it made progress. Still has a way to go.
You had family there that worked at RCA?
No, I didn't. My father came out of Pennsylvania coal mines and married my mother in California, and they stayed there. So I was raised there, and I came east. I was the only one that worked for RCA or Raytheon or anything technical like that, other than my brother. He was a civil engineer for the government. But no, I had no ties to RCA. It was just, the job sounded interesting, and I needed a spark, and it sounded like that was it.
What was one of the most memorable experiences working at RCA?
Unfortunately, it was probably the day I retired, because I could look at people that were in the room and remember things about each one of them, or somehow that we had interacted, and that I wasn't going to have that opportunity again. And probably the other highlights would be when that first antenna shipped. It was a production antenna. We knew what was going. It was going to the USS Ticonderoga, so it was the first in a class of ships, and that was a very special feeling because it was the first. At that time, nobody knew it was going to be going 30 years later, and that would have been a bad bet, by the way, because military contracts don't last that long. But probably the first array, but the most emotional was when I retired, because I wouldn't see those people. And that's what made the company, and that's what made RCA very much early on, was the people. RCA was a very family-oriented outfit. Very paternalistic. They took care of their people. They didn't hire and fire at will because, you know, the program needs went up or down. It was relatively stable, and they cared. That changed a little bit when GE bought the place. Changed back a little bit when Martin Marietta bought the place, and then went back to the GE mold when Lockheed came in. Not as family-oriented, I think, is a fair statement. So, you know, but you were still able to keep, you know, your close friends and kind of a family type who were taking care of each other. But at the company level, it's much different. Much different. That's a,
How much did RC influence the growth of Camden?
I don't know. And the reason I say that, the reason I say that is all of my work was in Moorestown. I wasn't, the closest I ever got to Camden was when I went over the Camden site, was when I drove over the Ben Franklin Bridge. So I know very little about Camden. I know that some of it spun off into L3, but I don't know a lot about Camden. Don't know many of the people there. I hope would have been as a big-time player in the business world that would have assisted, but I really don't know. Which doesn't help for this